What if I told you there's a mathematical formula that can pinpoint the exact moment you should stop searching and finally make a choice? And I'm talking about the big stuff: apartments, job offers, even finding a life partner. Let's get into the math of how to make a much, much better choice.
We've all been there, right? You're staring at a huge list of options, totally paralyzed by indecision. The question is always the same. How do you know when you've seen enough to make the right call without waiting so long that you miss out on the best one?
And look, we're not talking about choosing what to eat for lunch. This is about the heavy hitters: finding that perfect apartment, accepting a career-defining job, or even figuring out who you want to build a life with. For these decisions, the stakes are incredibly high.
So this whole feeling of being stuck in a never-ending search, it's a classic problem. So much so that mathematicians actually have a name for it. They call it the optimal stopping problem, and it really gets to the core of why choosing can feel almost impossible.
Here's the essential conflict, isn't it? If you jump the gun and commit too early, you're always going to be haunted by the what-ifs. That fear that something better was just around the corner. But if you wait too long, the best option might have already been snapped up, leaving you with whatever's left. It's a total catch-22.
The most famous version of this puzzle is actually called the secretary problem. Imagine this: you're interviewing people for a job one by one. You have to say yes or no right there on the spot. And here's the kicker: once you reject someone, they are gone for good. You can't go back. So what's the best strategy to give yourself the highest chance of hiring the single best candidate?
And this is where things get really, really cool. Because this isn't just some philosophical brain teaser. It's a real problem that mathematics has actually solved. There is a precise, calculated moment when you should stop looking and just take the leap.
Using some pretty advanced calculus and probability, mathematicians didn't just find a good strategy, they found the best possible one. It's a strategy that maximizes your odds of picking the absolute best option out of the entire group. And it all comes down to one single, surprisingly simple number: 37%. That's it. That is the magic number. It is the key to figuring out the perfect time to stop your search.
Okay, so here's how it works. You dedicate the first 37% of your search to just looking. No commitment, you're just gathering data, figuring out what's out there, and setting a benchmark. After you hit that 37% mark, which, by the way, is roughly 1 divided by the mathematical constant e, which is just a cool little detail, you flip a switch. You go from looking to choosing. And you commit to the very next option that is better than anything you saw in that first group.
All right, so how do we take this cool math theory and actually apply it to our lives? Well, it breaks down into a really simple 4-step process you can use for pretty much any major decision you're facing.
It's actually a beautiful, simple process. First, you just define your pool of options, like how many apartments you're going to see or maybe how much time you'll spend looking for a job. Then you enter the look phase. You explore that first 37% with absolutely zero commitment. From that group, you just identify your best so far. That becomes your benchmark. And after that, your mission changes. You commit to the very first option that beats that benchmark.
Let's make this super concrete. Say you plan to look at 10 apartments. According to the rule, the first 3 are just for research. You visit them, you take notes, but you are not allowed to make an offer. Then you just decide which of those 3 was the best. That's your benchmark. After that, whether it's apartment number 4, 5, or 8, the very first one you see that's better than your benchmark, you sign the lease. Done. No more second guessing.
And yeah, this logic can even apply to something as messy and personal as dating. If you estimate, say, having about 10 serious relationships in your life before you settle down, the rule suggests that the first 3 or 4 of them are basically your data gathering phase. They aren't failures. They're essential for teaching you what you actually value and setting a benchmark for what a truly great partner looks like. After that, you're statistically ready to recognize the person who really exceeds that standard.
So, why does this rule actually work so well? Well, it's way more than just a mathematical party trick. It's a really powerful psychological framework that creates this perfect balance between looking around and actually taking action.
The power of this rule really comes down to 4 things. First, it forces you to have an exploration phase so you're not choosing in a vacuum. You actually learn what good looks like. Second, it gives you a clear, no-nonsense trigger to commit, which saves you from that dreaded analysis paralysis. Third, this just makes your search way more efficient. And finally, because it's a strategy backed by solid math, it gives you the confidence to trust your gut and tell that little voice of self-doubt to quiet down.
Now, let's be super clear here. This rule doesn't guarantee a perfect outcome. I mean, no strategy can do that. The goal isn't to find some flawless, mythical option. It's about mathematically maximizing your probability of finding the best one that's actually out there. It's a tool for making smarter, more confident decisions way faster.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this simple mantra. Explore for 37%, then commit with confidence. It is such a powerful way to break free from that endless search and just, finally, start choosing. It kind of makes you wonder, right? In a world with infinite choices, maybe the real freedom isn't having more options, but knowing exactly when it's time to stop looking for them.
What if I told you there's a mathematical